Hey everybody, this is Margaret. Thanks for coming to my channel and you're on BookTube. Welcome everybody to this wrap-up Wednesday. So usually I do a video on Tuesday, but I had to produce another video for someone else yesterday in this time slot. So I kicked it to Wednesday and then I came up with Wrap-Up Wednesday. And I don't really like the term wrap-up, but Wrap-Up Wednesday, I don't know, it's a little better. Tell me how you like it. We're here to talk about the books that I read in November. I'm going to blame every bit of stuttering and stammering today on the fact that I just got my booster shot. Woohoo! So yeah, that's going to be my excuse today. But yeah, I just thought I'd talk about some November reads. And here, let me look a little silly for everybody. Ta-da! Here's my stack of physical books that I still have. We're going to go over... Oh, it's going to fall. That's going to fall. That's fine. There we go. 12 books read in November, but I'm going to actually go over 13 because one ties in with the theme of November's Indigathon. And so I thought I'd include it here anyway. So there we go. I'm going to start with, let's see, I've got all these new banners for this. Coming attractions, I have just pointing to later in the week, I've got, hi Anita, later in the week, I've got 90s kids as author tubers. And just in case some people feel like they should be 90s kids, but they're not included. I mean like teenagers able to get the pop culture reference. So Shay considers herself a 90s kid, but she was born in 90s. So that's like, you're not 5 years old, like talking about the latest dance moves and asking your parents for a certain school supply. So that's what I mean. Like you're a teenager going through the 90s. So there we go. And Joe is here. Hey, Joe, go indie now. Nice. 12 books. Yeah. So let me pop that in the chat. 90s kids tag. So it's a tag with some questions about the 90s and what you remember and what you went through. So feel free to stop by. It's going to be in the evening, and I've got 4 guests, I think, and so we'll just have a lot of fun chatting about stuff. So that's a good tag to have. And what else is coming up this weekend? I don't know. Something I've been talking about since like June, maybe? In case y'all don't know how to pronounce this, it is Yola Bokaflod, PDX. And so this is our indie author book fair. If you're an indie author yourself, you know, you take any opportunity to put some more marketing towards your books. This was our effort to highlight Pacific Northwest local indie authors. And so we're going to have 21 tables, which is Elizabeth L. Mitchell and myself, plus 19 other folks, including 3 vendors. So 16 other indie authors. We're all going to be at Urbanite PDX, and definitely check out our Instagram. It has the coolest pictures because Elizabeth does those. And this Sunday, 11 a.m., 3:30, a couple of my BookTube, AuthorTube friends might be there in person, and I am very excited for that possibility. So hope to see you there, or check out one of the authors who piques your interest and buy their book. It'll make their Christmas, I assure you. And we appreciate it. Joe's saying, let me know when you do 80s kids. I suppose I could do 80s. My sisters are both 80s kids. I bet there's a tag out there, of course. But I would be sort of basking in the reflected light of my older sisters and their music tastes and hand-me-downs, basically. So, and then Jim is here. Hey, Jim, I just managed to finish 5 in November. Well, you were up against the Dickens Meister, so I understand. Yeah. Okay, so we've got our coming attractions done. We've got our number out of the way. I'll just put that up there to remind people in case anyone waltzes in and wonders what Yola Bokaflod is. Ask me about it. So let's go through the books. I've got a thing to keep me on track here because some of these feel like a year ago, even though it was a month ago. So first I have I don't have it here because I already returned it to the library, but A Cowboy to Remember by Rebekah Weatherspoon. This is my first Rebekah Weatherspoon book, and I read it because Kazan of Always Doing recommends Rebekah Weatherspoon, and she has lots of books out, so I just sort of picked one that didn't seem sequentially dependent. And it's a cowboy romance, but it's like contemporary with African American cowboys who run a dude ranch in California with someone who lives across the country in New York City. So it's juggling a lot of things, and one of the things I felt that it lacked was like not sweeping enough. I feel like higher stakes is what I'm used to in a romance. And Cousin said that's actually what she appreciates about this series is that it's low stakes. And so we just have a difference of taste there, apparently. But it was good. It was a well-written book. It was well plotted. I just felt like the devices were too convenient and we left without a resolution of like the bad person. So like no justice. So not my favorite, but I'll definitely try a different series of Rebekah Weatherspoons because here she's awesome. Give her another try. Book number 2. I'm going to put a card up here, so I'm going to remind myself later. This is where the Red Mars card should go. So in case you missed our fabulous discussion, Chrissy from the Return Cart and I talked about Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson, a sci-fi classic. This was written in 1992, so 90s again. And I think we just started reading it because I had seen Kim Stanley Robinson's newer book and was interested, but wanted to try something older to see if I liked the style before, paying $26 for a hardback hardcover. And it'd been a while since hard sci-fi. So this was not a small book. It was a mass market, but it was like 580 pages. And we took forever. We took like a good 5-6 weeks to read it. And this is like reading pretty steadily. And yeah, you can go watch that discussion. Anita saying a fabulous discussion indeed. Thank you. It was pretty cool. We talked, Anita brought up, we talked about utopian and dystopian. And so like, if you're a sci-fi fan, it's definitely a good author to check out, I would say. So yeah, so pop over for that. I would give Red Mars interesting, fair, maybe like a 3.25 star if, yeah, that's what I put down earlier. So we'll stick with that. John is here to say howdy, howdy. The next one is another card. So this is where I'm going to put our discussion of Island Queen and the Vanished Days. This was a panel discussion about home and historical fiction. Sorry, someone's being crazy. This is a good time to pick it. I mean, if it's not the cat being crazy, it's the leaf blower migration where they're all around my house, right? But home and historical fiction was with Susanna Kearsley, who wrote The Vanished Days, and Vanessa Riley, who wrote Island Queen. And I only have one of these, but I need to bring it back to the library, so I will hold that up for visual enjoyment. So here we go. Favorite author. Have read most of her books, but she has quite a lot out, and so does Vanessa Riley. So I've only read 2 of hers, and I read probably like 5 or 6 of Susanna's. But it was a great discussion. Historical fiction, they are both in the 17th century primarily, and so that's not my time period, but they made it exciting. Let's see what I said about Vanish Days. I said, okay, you start with a murder mystery in the 1600s, right? And then you sort of have layers around that, like an onion that you're peeling away with all these different people's secret pasts. And they do that. She does this in a very pleasing way. It's not like trickery and it's not like stilted. So I think she did that really well. And then there's stories of like trust being gained and terrors and trials endured is what I said in my notes. So it's very well ensconced in the setting, and the terrors of the setting are there, as well as the trials of the characters that we're following. And so you really get sympathy for the characters, and it just fits in with the way that the narrative is sweeping you along. And again, there we go, sweeping. Apparently I like to be swept along in my narrative. So there you go. And Island Queen, the other book that I examined for this, is about It has as its starting point a woman who was featured in a cartoon in Regency, England. It was King William, back when he was a prince, and it featured a black woman in a hammock with the prince because he was a sailor and sailors live in hammocks. And so it was supposed to like bring him down as like a tabloid scandal, basically. But Vanessa Riley took this as a starting point to who is this woman? And it turns out she was like the, what would you call it? All I can think of are bad names for these reality shows where you submit your business deal. Shark Tank? Like Shark Tank Millionaire. So it's this woman, Dorothy Thomas, who's her final name, how she gets out of slavery, how she makes a business empire, how she deals with family issues, how she negotiates her own ideas about freedom and security and safety, and provides changes the future for her family. So it was great. It was a very long audiobook, and we love the audiobooks. If I have another card, I'll put it up here. I have a top 10 nonfiction audiobooks, but this was for a fiction audiobook, Island Queen by Vanessa Riley. So anyway, so those two are both great, and in my bailiwick, my home turf, my historical fiction stable of favorites. So there we go. The next one I wanted to talk about was another card. Sorry, I'm loading these at the beginning because they're always the most trouble to go through and find. Hamnet. So buddy read. We had a buddy read discussion of Hamnet with Sandy of Ms. Reads a Lot. And I have this one too. Pull it out here. Ta-da! So I got the paperback version when I was in San Luis Obispo for the summer. And we talked about this, so you can definitely go watch our discussion, which I'll pop up. But what can I say about this book? My background going in is that I'm very familiar with the play Hamlet. And what I had heard about this book was that it was about Hamnet, Shakespeare's son, but that Shakespeare is never named in the book, and it's mostly about his son and his wife. Okay, that's not a spoiler. That's pretty obvious from the beginning. And what the tagline is a novel of the plague, but it's not like the pandemic we're in where everyone's isolated. It's more about 1560s, 70s, Shakespeare's time, that atmosphere, the two characters, their love for family, their bewilderment at the fates that they're cast, their loss of assurance and adaptation to hardship, their small petty resentments and revenge fantasies. And the book was a 5-star for me because, and everyone's been talking about ratings and reviews, so I'm going to be careful about how I say this. It jumped out of the ordinary. For one, it's in present tense, and some of you may not appreciate that, and I normally don't appreciate that. But it lent a film to the reading. It lent a sort of, not an Instagram filter, but like a film, not a greasy film, not like a mirror toothpaste stuff in your bathroom, but it was just like there's a dreamy quality reading through this. There's another book that I read recently that had a similar dreamy quality, but it's like months ago, so it's obviously out of here. I should take this down. So the present tense, the dreamy lyrical language. What else did I say? The tone of the narrator shifts. You're following two people, so you've got a bit of contrast to liven it up. And you've got a lot of nature symbolism and symbolism in general, which is in keeping with the fact that it's Shakespeare's life and family. And so I just really enjoyed that. It's not that I picked up every Easter egg that the author, sorry, I haven't mentioned it, Maggie O'Farrell, every Easter egg that she put in there to do with Shakespeare, but I caught a few, and like a few like nods to certain things made this extra special and enjoyable. So definitely recommend. Great gift. I think Joe said, looks like a thick book. I think you're talking about Vanish Days. So Vanish Days, I read in 2 days. It flies by. Island Queen, listening to it, even on like 1.3, I can't go very fast. That took me weeks and weeks. It's longer. So yeah. JD is here. Hello, late as it gets. Not exactly. I'm sure people will come after you. Hungry Bookworm. Hello, hello. Devin Cutting. Howdy. Welcome all. Thank you for stopping by. I am on, let's see, I am on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm on my 6th book. The 6th book. And then, so we're going to go into some of Nonfiction November, and then like this spate of fiction that I couldn't help getting into. And then, oh, I actually did have this one. And then back to Nonfiction November and a Digithon. So just to know that's coming. This I got from the library. It's a research book, Letterpress Printing, a manual for modern fine press printers by Paul Maravelas. It's very technical. It's got diagrams. It's got like how-tos. So it was fine. It was good. I don't need a copy of it. I took pictures of some. I think I made one tab and one turn down. So I'll bring it back to the library, and you know, it's a good resource for people who are actually printing or maybe writing about printers. But yeah, not completely mesmerizing. Let's just call it that. Allison, hi. I came here purely for the non-greasy film. Well, let me tell you, Hamnet is a delight, and the non-greasy film is part of its mystique for sure. And JD saying, curious how some books fly and others plod. And it's not that it plodded, but when you listen to something, I didn't have a physical version. When you listen to something, you have to only go as fast as you can comprehend listening. And because I do lots of things, I can't divide my attention. I'm one of those people. So I could only listen in 45 minutes when I was on a walk, sprints. And so that's why it took so long. It was like I don't remember, 22 hour, 28 hour, 40 hour. It was really long on audio. So, but yeah, it goes over a lot of her life, which is why. Okay. Next book we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to get into the spate of fiction. So someone said, and I can't remember who it was when I was talking about this in my TBR, Unbound by Juliet Kaewert. This is like an early 2000s book. And I picked it up because it looked like one of those palette cleansers between heavier topics. It's a mystery that is set in a bookshop society in London. So I'm like, okay, check. Over here. Yeah, right. But I found it was just okay. It was fusty, over the top meets Da Vinci Code. Okay, those are my notes. So it was like the Da Vinci Code in that there was some vast conspiracy that's like waiting to assail you once you read it. And it was also fusty and over the top because they had all these like references to literature stuff and antiquarian stuff and rich people stuff in England and France, and that I was kind of not here for. It might have been better at a different time, but and this is one of a series. I think there's at least 2 or 3. So someone else may like it. It may be a good palette cleanser for them, or just a better time for someone else. But yeah, so that was Unbound. I gave that like 3 stars. JD saying, well, I'm also not a fan of speeding up any audio. Like some people watch videos 2 times speed. Nope. Videos I can do, but audio, for some reason, I can't. The most I did was 1.6. And the gal who is the narrator for Island Queen is amazing as an actress, but she spools out her words like it's, I don't know. Give me a good film reference here, Joe. Francis Ford Coppola. Like every word is dripping with intent, and her accent is delicious, but I just did not have time for that in November. So that's why I had to speed it up a little. Non-greasy film, so I guess it won't be starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Thank you, Jim. No. Shatnerized. I don't know, does Shatner speak? I think Shatner's thing is that he leaves pauses and expects them to be dramatic, and they're not. I think it's like, who else? Who is an actor that Daniel Day-Lewis? No, he speaks quickly in his accents. someone who just takes their time with the speech. Kenneth Branagh, maybe? I don't know, he talks fast too. Anyway, she's the aunt figure in Bridgerton as well. So she acts in the TV series, and then she's got a whole career as an audio narrator. So she is a talent, as we say. Oh, Joe's coming in with the reference here. Terrence Malick. Okay. I trust you. I'll give it to you on that one. Totally agree. Speeding up the narration for me spoils the voice acting. It's true. It's true. Brando back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that would be a good comparison. I'm sure she'd like that. I can't remember her name. Her last name is Ando. I can't remember her first name. It starts with an A. But yeah. So there we go. So, okay. Catching up to the books. I think we're halfway through here. Unbound. And then continuing with the fiction. We've got The Foundling by Georgette Hare. I'm going to say Hare. I don't know if it's Hare. But this is my first Georgette Hare. She's recommended to me as a historical romance classic. And this is the first one I found at Backstory. And it was okay. It was definitely a swashbuckle, but over the top in a different way from Unbound. It was just like foppishly sort of caricatured. Obviously, she set the standard. These are from the 1930s and 40s and are what most Regency romances are now based on rather than primary source material. But it was good. I definitely wanted to keep reading. And she definitely has a lot of setting and period details right. But the story and the sort of swagger of the story sort of left me cold at the end. So I'll give her another try. But that was my first experience with Georgette Hare. And then we've got Shadowfell by Juliet Marillier. Okay. So this was better. This was good. This is, I think, 4 stars. Where is it? Yeah, there we go. 4 stars. I got this a long time ago. This is a young adult book, and it's fantasy. And I got this at the bookstore where I used to work. That is now closed. And I wrote, I don't know how many of you will get this reference, but if you like Anne McCaffrey's, what is it called? It's not Dragon Riders of Pern. It's the later series that was young adult that had to do with Manali. And I say Manali, but I know other people say Menali. There's a young female protagonist, and she's basically like tested her bravery, and like she's alone, and so she has to learn stuff on her own, coming of age stuff, and it's just really well done. I liked the world. Joe says that last book sounded like it tried to force smart references to deflect its very predictable plot. It wasn't a predictable plot. It definitely twisted and turned, but like it had a very, shall we say, non-progressive view of who deserves a happy ending and that kind of thing. So that's why I was like, yeah, fine, golf clap, on you go. That was my reaction. And I think Joe's talking about this one, cool cover, not loving the title font though. Well, yeah, it doesn't really have to do much with the origin of this font, but that's fine. Yeah, so Manali from Pern, and what are they called? The Harpers of Pern series. Yes. So she's tested on her own and finds her strengths, and I can't wait to read the second one. It's on my TBR for December. I got it from the library. Raven Flight. So I'm excited. This is a good one. And I have a little friend down here who is dangerously close to the place where I'm throwing the books. Let's see if I can point it down here. Yeah. Hey, Bean. He's in a little pocket of sunlight. The little pocket of sunlight that I am hiding from for the benefit of the video, just so you know. Joe says, you said Da Vinci Code, which gives away the end in the first 10 pages. Okay, that was a different book. Da Vinci Code was Unbound, not The Foundling. So, and I don't know what that would give away the ending because I don't remember the Da Vinci Code. I remember I read it in a day because it was so good, but this is like a secret society that's scheming to take over the world. That's what I mean by Da Vinci Code. Like, Yeah. Conspiracy theories. Just Eva is here. Hello, hello. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, Bean's got the pocket of sunlight close to me, but he's also close to where the books are getting thrown, so that could be dangerous. Hello, Godfather. Hey, JD. And Anita, not sure if I know anyone else, but hey, I am the place where the waters meet, to use a overused Native American phrase, perhaps. The place where the ponds of AuthorTube come together. We were just talking about this earlier. All right, we're almost done. I've got a couple fiction left here. Shadowfell was good, and then I've got Dark Fire by C.J. Sansom, a Matthew Shardlake novel. Okay. So I thought I was getting something else when I bought this, but it's fine. It's fine. I was talked into another historical fiction. Big surprise. And this is not my time frame. Again, this is 1500s, like Renaissance era. Yeah, 1540, Henry VIII. You actually like hear about Henry VIII politics. Matthew Shardlake is our main character. He is a lawyer. He's entrusted with a case, and it's kind of like Law and Order Henry VIII edition. He is a hunchback, and so that is an interesting twist for our main character, and just to see a little bit of that discrimination, but it doesn't influence it too much. There is plots, political maneuverings, as well as he's trying to figure out the mystery someone gave him for a case, which is sort of related, but not the case itself. So that's vague, but it was intricate. It was one of those, it's kind of long. It was one of those things where you feel like you can tell the author is going, I don't know, will it be this person or will it be that person? And so they just keep skipping back and forth with the protagonist's point of view. Like the protagonist thinks, I think this is what I do in Memory's Hostage. So just to be transparent. So I felt like the author was kind of like, oh, who should I make be behind it all? But it was good. It was well written and interesting, and I got through it fairly quickly, so it was pretty pacey, as they say. Oh, maybe that's what I should rename my channel, The Confluence. Thank you, Jim. Anita saying Dark Fire sounds like my kind of book. I think you would enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah. Hungry Bookworm says, I enjoy the Sansom books. Yeah, and I started with the number 2. So Dissolution is number 1. And this is a couple years later. So it references that time and some of the actions taken, but it did not take away from the enjoyment of the second book at all. So I might go back and read Dissolution, but they didn't have it at the used bookstore when I went, so I got this one instead. So Dark Fire, C.J. Sansom, I gave 3.75/4. I'm sort of in that area. And then I think we're done. We're done with the fiction, the spate of fiction. So in case you don't know, I do the fiction as like palate cleansers between heavier reads. So I took off from the main way I do things like this, which is chronological, and I arranged this so that I could put the cards at the beginning and sort of group the readathons at the end. So I don't know. I hope that works for you guys, because now I'm going to dive into the readathons. So the nonfiction November books that I read were the Letterpress book, which was fine, and let's see, I got a banner or an overlay for this. Unreconciled. Uno momento. Do I? Yes. Okay. So this is a book by Jesse Wente that came up on Libro.fm, the sweetest smelling purveyor of audiobooks in the world. And the tagline is Family Truth and Indigenous Resistance. So the reason it's a living room with a TV center stage is that Jesse Wente is a well-known Canadian film critic, and I did not know this. So I went in and expected like memoir, but I also got a lot of industry peeping, and this is why I think it would be good for Joe, into the film critic side of things, how he worked with government agencies, how he got his start, how the industry has come a long way, but has a long way to go in terms of Native American representation. And just he's the one where I said the thing that sticks out the most is they sent my grandmother to a residential school, and my daughter is now on the reserve and wants to live there because it's such a happy place to be with her family. So all the effort to tear apart families, to indoctrinate people with Catholicism, to kill the Indian and save the man, as people said that policy was aiming to do, it got them 2 generations of decimation, and then they're back to like being together with their families. So he's got a lot of interesting reflections and decisions, and like really sort of scraping away his learning and like getting at his values, which is really good. So this was not a long one to listen to. So if you're in for a shorter read for Indigathon, I would definitely recommend Jesse Wente's Unreconciled. There we go. Nonfiction November and Indigathon. There's a banner for that. I came prepared today. You know it. I came prepared. So Unreconciled was the first one that I read. The second book that I read that satisfies both Nonfiction November and Indigathon is Mind Spread Out on the Ground. And this is by Alicia Elliott. So cover by, but also lots of people who have recommended on BookTube that I've seen talk about for Indigathon and other readathons. And this is a series of linked essays, and I really enjoyed it. So let me explain the enjoyment part. So it's about depression. The title, A Mind Spread Out on the Ground, is the rough translation of depression into the Mohawk language. And that is what Alicia Elliott belongs to, tribe-wise. So it starts with that, but then each chapter is an essay that is tying a different part of her learning, a different part of her life experience, and they're really impressive and impactful. So she grew up in a very difficult environment with abuse and mental health issues. And so she, from her perspective now, from a more healthy place, is looking back and trying to put things in context, put things in perspective, relate stuff that's happened a long time ago to stuff that's happened more recently, understand the way she loves people who can't love her back, just like big mountain moving types of thoughts. But it's not a huge book. And the way she does this so carefully is through like subjects. And it's like if you had a binder in grade school and you had divided by subject. The one I liked the most was called Dark Matters. And she braids together discoveries about dark matter, like in space, the stuff that we can't detect with our instruments, and the particular kind of racism that she has come up against, and how like you can't detect it, but you know it's there. And the way she just juxtaposes like a paragraph and then her story, and then a paragraph and then her story. It's devastatingly good. It's like, that's my favorite one in here, obviously. But yeah, really affecting. I know someone who used to be in the writing group that I used to be in who writes like this. And so I automatically recommended it to Laura, and Laura's book is coming out next spring. So if you guys read this, I have another rec for you right behind. Just someone who observes a lot about the world and connects things from vastly different disciplines to get more familiar and more comfortable with the concepts. So I am a big fan. Did I have anything else? Personal, incisive, connecting across concepts. Yeah, I think I covered that. So thank you, Alicia Elliott. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, so I'm done with the books. The only other one that I had, so that was 12 books, but because I finished another Libro.fm audiobook like 2 days ago, and it really belongs with Indigathon, and sort of in my mind, it's in that same crop of books that I'm comparing and relating and confusing with a little bit. I'm going to include it here in the November wrap up, so sue me. But that is Res Rules by Clarence Louis, and I don't think I have a picture for this one up. Yeah, apologies. Res Rules by Chief Clarence Louis. He is a chief of a Indian band, which is what his I'm using his terminology, and I had that Native November, and I had the tag of like something in history, and both of those were trying to describe populations that I'm not familiar with, and we're sort of like fumbling through to talk about and get the word out about without really knowing what I was talking about. And it's great. It's me practicing being imperfect on camera, which is just good for everybody, right? Especially for me. And so I definitely got more familiar with terms that people use. So Indian band is what he uses. He has a lot of views that I maybe didn't agree with in terms of personality wise, but it's like the olden days where you could disagree and still respect each other, not like crazy person on the other side of reality, different views. So there's that. He is part of the Osuyus Indian band. And what's funny is I actually was out walking the other day. This is a funny random side story. Was out walking the other day, and someone came up to me. Several people came up to me that day. I don't know why I had like ask me question tourist vibes, but I did with my headphones on. And this woman asked if she asked me how to get back across the Morrison Bridge, which if you live in Portland, you know why it's difficult, because they make it difficult for pedestrians. So anyway, I couldn't tell her exactly how because I didn't remember. So I had to like walk her to where the thing was. And then we ended up walking across the bridge. So we talked for like half an hour of walking, like finding the pedestrian part and going across the bridge. And she's from Calgary. And I mentioned that I was listening to this book in my headphones. And she said, "Oh, Osuyus. I didn't know that was an Indian band. I just thought it was like a resort place." So immediately I had feedback about maybe like another point of view on this place that I was getting one point of view on, which was kind of cool to have. Like, this is the chief's viewpoint. He's an economic development powerhouse. He's been the chief for like 35 years. It's a Pacific Northwest Indian tribe. They're doing really well, and he is offering his thoughts on how he managed to do that, what he thinks is important, and comparing like experiences of tribes across the nation, but also across the US. So the Osuyus is part of a tribe or family of tribes that is in Canada and the United States, here in Washington State, nearby. I'm in Portland, but Washington State is very close. And so he talks about the res being the reserves in Canada and the reservations in America, and a lot of the history, a lot of the issues, some that I had never heard of. I did not know the Native American understanding of the word per capita. So he dives into a lot of stuff, and the sports logo is one of them. So there's some really interesting things that I'd love to talk to people about. So let's see. Let me just bring up I took some notes here on his book. So Jesse Wente in his audiobook has a childhood memory, and I think he's much younger than Clarence Louis, but he has a childhood memory of being ostracized or having a terrible feeling when he was up at bat on the baseball field and people would make war whoop noises, and like it was a way to make fun of him that they couldn't use for anyone else because he was the only Native kid in the league. So that really made him feel ostracized and alienated. But when I listened to Clarence Louis, he's talking about sports logos, about Indians and Natives, Redskins, words like this, like actually being a rallying point, because for him in his 1970s, 1960s childhood, like that was one of the healthy things that they gravitated toward, is having a sports team and playing sports. And that was a healthy outlet rather than other things that, would lead you down a dark road. So that's part of what I mean by like personality is very different. Upbringing is very different. But I can see, like maybe they like having a team called the Indians because that is a way to signal support. But I can understand what he's saying, but I can also understand the people who are not wanting to have that influence. He kind of accuses the people who are leading that movement of being the off-res Indians and like not addressing the real issues, only addressing the sort of symptoms or symbols, which is a fair point. So anyway, with just those two books and just sports as a category, there's like, we are not a monolith. Think about that. So yeah, very, very cool stuff to follow. Let me catch up. So JD said, wow, and I'm not sure what the wow. I think that might be the Calgary tourist encounter. And Shay's dropping in to say, hey Shay. Nice to see you. JD saying, I'm in Atlanta, and yeah, it's a thing. So the Braves. But so yeah, so the difference is a kid and the war whoop versus the adult and the let me look back to see what he says. The tomahawk chop. So I guess that's what they do for the Braves, right? Is they do a motion like this, like they have a tomahawk in their hand, and that's like a sports thing. But he's okay with the tomahawk chop because that somehow signals for him respect for or love of his culture, and not with war paint because that's imitating and cultural appropriation. So obviously the lines that people draw are very different across backgrounds, generations, tribes, experiences. So duh, right? That's a duh point. But it was interesting to have two things, like very recent novels, say such a different thing. What was the other point I was going to make about that? Cultural appropriation. Oh, and visibility. So the Clarence Louis book also made the point that, well, when you take out those stereotypical bad names for Native Americans from sports, like that just makes us more invisible. And that's a problem with the whole community. So that's, that's having different consequences than maybe they would want. So that's another thing to consider. JD says it's been a topic of discussion for a time. Yep, Cleveland has gotten rid of theirs. They're the Cleveland Guardians, I heard, just because of this book. Anita says symbols can be a very powerful thing, though. Yep. The chop. Yep. They also do a chant. And I think the chant might be different from the whoop that Jesse Wente was talking about. But yeah, it's like there's a whole suitcase full of white culture versions of what we think Native Americans think, act like, do, sound like, whatever. And because we're so far from and so segregated from those cultures, we don't know if they're true and we don't know if they're harmful. So it was very eye-opening and engaging to listen to these books and be like, oh, okay, here's one poll, here's another poll. Like, I'm sure there's other polls all around this universe. And it was really good to hear it from their lips because they read their own books. Washington team also dropped theirs. Yeah, the football team. At the time he was writing this, they were still contemplating a new name, and they were just the Washington team, which is totally lame. But yeah, I don't know where they'll go with it. But really interesting topic to engage with. But as Clarence Louis points out, it's if you're going to engage with this sort of advocacy, you should also be engaging with the sort of advocacy that is like jobs on reservations and, like corruption in the government agencies and that sort of stuff that really affects quality of life. So fair point. I am getting spammers in chat. That is a first for me. Woohoo! I've made it, guys. Oh boy. Okay, so res rules. Let's see if I had other points. We talked about the sports stuff. He talks about scolding being a cultural behavior norm, and you need to be strong to scold a person. So like that's a whole debate that I think Americans at least shy away from in terms of like spanking their kids and disciplining, and how we've gone from one extreme to another, and we don't really know what's right, and we don't want government making those decisions for us. But that was his take. His definition of a warrior. He doesn't think people should get 2 weeks off for Christmas when schools are off. And I was like, why? Is that because it's grant funded or because it's humane? He had some interesting views that I was like, I need to ask more about where he's coming from on these. He had issues with the Vancouver regional office because there's tribe offices, regional, provincial offices, and then the national office, and there's admin at each level. And I thought, well, maybe they're administering affairs for non-res natives. So like I felt like I needed some more definition before I could compare and like see what I thought about some of these issues. What else have we got? The Kamloops Amendment, the not Corolla, Kelowna agreement. Like there were some landmark agreements and things that are in a recent past that I'd never heard of. So I thought that was really neat. Chief Dan George had a centenary speech that was fabulous that we got little excerpts from. So I want to follow up and read more of that. He mentioned several times a recent movement to patriate Canada's constitution, and I wasn't sure what that meant. He doesn't think people should be paid for unused sick days. So there were some really like sort of funky smelling bootstrappy opinions that in America, at least in the context that I'm familiar with, did not vibe with me. But it was good to hear. It was good to hear the whole package of his views. Nice. Kelowna. I got it in 3, so give me some credit at least. Kelowna agreements, which is apparently something that was negotiated very hard, and then the next administration came in and threw it out. So it's kind of like the Paris Agreement. Huge achievement, and then the next people came in and were like, no, we're not going to do that. So a shame. Oh, JD says, what can I say? It can't be Puerto Rican according to some people, and that's something pretty much every ethnicity can deal with at some time or another. Can't be? Meaning like people look at you and make assumptions? Yeah, that's lame. Eva says, moving on up. Oh, the spamming. The big times. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Soon I'll get Bitcoiners? Oh God, I hope not. And Shannon is here. Hi all. Sorry for being late. It's all good. It's all good. We're talking about the Toyota Corolla Agreement of 1973, which somehow fits in with my November reads. You'll have to rewatch to figure it out, I guess. JD's saying people look and listen and are like, nah. Yeah, well, you know, they're not inside your head. They're not inside your body. So what are they going to do about it? Oy. So, yeah, lots of interesting stuff. A great reading month. I had several 5 stars, lots of 4 stars. And, you know, the palate cleansers and the sci-fi and sort of trying stuff out tends to be meh, like the 3.25 reads. So that is my glazing over for November. I always love participating in Digithon and Nonfiction November. So happy reader, Margaret. And just to close out here, I had some stuff at the beginning that I'll just ping again in case anyone is different from who started. We have the 90s Kids' author tuber tag. So this Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing the 90s Kids tag, which is like a few questions and just like joshing around and poking at each other's 90s biases. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest or, you know, within an hour or two of Portland, I invite you down to Yola Boca Flow and PDX on Sunday from 11 to 3:30. We have indie authors selling books. They're selling crafts. We have the second Sunday flea market outside. We have carolers. I think we're having a Santa. We've got Eberhard Press. We've got Cloud Forest chocolate, which is drinking chocolate to serve, and Cup of Tea Oregon. So that's like blended tea blends to take home with you. So lots of fun stuff. And we're all hosted by Urbanite PDX, which is a gargantuan warehouse of all the different makers in the area, plus vintage, plus art. So, I mean, if you are looking for gifts for people, this would be an easy one-stop shop. And that was what we were aiming for. So hopefully you can come and find something to either cheer yourself up, which is also allowed, or get for gifts for those difficult people to buy for. Eva says, fun. Yes. We don't know what we're going to do with Yola Boca Flow going forward. I really like the online version that could open up to other people. JD was on last year. Molly Ringel was on last year online, and she's going to be at the In Real Life one this Sunday. She's coming down from Seattle, so I'm super excited to meet her in person. Another booktuber to meet in person. Eva says, I'm an 80s kid. I'll scoff in Generation X. Well, you know, Joe is also looking for an 80s kid version. So if you want to get together and do that tag, Joe Compton at Go Indie Now is another author / filmmaker who would probably love to have you on. Check it out. Shannon is on Friday along with JD. Looking forward to the 90s kids. Jim is a 70s kid. Sorry, Jim. Like mostly out of touch, so I can't help you there. Although there might be a tag. Who knows? You could do a different series. JD says, well, I was born in 1980, Eva, so kind of both. Well, here's my thing. I was born in 81, so I'm an 80s kid, but I will not understand any references from the 80s because I was only 9 years old and I was not aware of the world at 9 years old. Like I went to church, I went to school, I went to family reunions and camping and Girl Scouts, and like none of that really put me into the pop culture world. So that's why like 90s is where I started to be aware of, oh, advertising, oh, music and all that stuff. So that's my take on it. Barrett Laurie is here. So there you go, JD. You're not the latest. And John's saying same, Eva. So we've got some 70s, some 80s kids. You were all welcome, all very welcome. Sorry to be late. It's okay. I'm a day late and $1 extra. That's my new tagline. Forget Confluence. Day late and $1 extra. That is your girl's new tagline. I love it. Damn, Margaret. Oh, what is that in reference to? That's only 2 minutes ago. I'm behind. How did I get behind? We can feel old together. Eva says, Barrett says, I have to hop on a meeting, but I'm leaving this open to give that time. Aw. Hit that like button. I forgot that. Thank you, Barrett. Like and subscribe if you're not already. Eva says, take care, Barrett. JD says, squee. I don't know what that's about either. Shay says, 90s kids unite. Awesome. Shannon was born in 1980 as well. So we're a cohort. That's what I was trying to bring together. And like a few of us that are sort of a author tube cohort. But maybe we should do a 2000s one because there's references for there too. JD says, I watched so much stuff. Well, that's still the case. Yeah. Eva says to JD, same actually, but I was on my own by the mid-90s and we were well below that poverty line, so the tech wasn't in my life until closer to the turn of the century. Yes, valid. Yep. Depends on your experiences. 90s kid collab. There we go. Barrett is also in the group for Friday. Devin was born in 75. So you could choose to consider yourself any of the above because 5 and 15, I mean, you span the decades. Impressive. 1982. Baron, you're younger than me. Shay says 1990, totally 90s kid because the 90s was too influential to not know pop culture. That is also a good point. I guess the 90s were very influential so that they sort of went into the 2000s. That makes sense to me too. Anita says born in 67, so you all are youngsters to me. Anita's the queen of the realm here today. Shannon, hi and bye. Barrett. Oh my gosh, I'm catching up. JD, Shannon, and I were all 80s babies. I just had my birthday a month ago. Who is oldest? I think Anita is the oldest. JD, that'll get you growing up way fast, Eva. Cheers on better times. Here, here. August 13th. Is that a smiley face? Oh, it looked like a vampire face for a second. Eva says, I have siblings born from 61 to 90. I know Shannon's birthday is in January. Wink, wink. Oh, did I do it? Did I do it? I did. And we have a winner. Oh. Spread out nicely over 1980. 90s were kind of like the last decade with a ton of flavor, like it. 2000s to 2010s kind of blend for me, which is such a grumpy old man thing to say. Oh, Jim said he's a 70s kid, but he meant my interpretation. So he is the reigning king of the oldest of the group, maybe. And Shay says, I know 96 to 98 kids swearing they get references because they watch some shows and knew a few artists. Lol, I'd be like, y'all don't know nothing. Yeah, I mean, some people have better, grew up faster, have better memories, were out in pop culture more. And so, you know, they could sort of situate themselves wherever they want. And the point of the earlier reading is that that's their prerogative, right? Isn't that a 90s song? That's my prerogative. Did I just do that? Yeah, you can't tell them where they belong. So it's just up to anyone to self-identify and find your cohort. There you go. Cheers. They do blend. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool deal. All right. Well, that was my somewhat lengthy November wrap-up Wednesday. I think I'm going to keep that from now on and do wrap-ups on Wednesdays, just to be happy about a pun, because we love a pun. Hope to see you Friday. Hope to see you Sunday. And ta-da! And this is where I'm going to do the exit page. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to get shit done and taste life twice. And there's my hot chocolate that is now cold. Oops. We'll see you guys later. Bye.